Hello everyone, can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, good afternoon, sir, and good afternoon, everyone. So, we are going to present about the PhD thesis. The title is an analysis of the translation of vocabulary lists in textbooks for teaching Chinese as a foreign language, or we can shorten as TCFL. It will be presented by me, Francisca, and then Sarfaraz, and then Hazel. So let's start the beginning from the introduction. So in today's world, we know that foreign language learning is very popular, especially in Chinese, and it is written by Central Office of the Confucius Institute. There are 100 million non-native Chinese students and 150,000 non-native Chinese students, an increase of 50% every year. In addition, in 2013, more than 5 million non-native students took Chinese language tests such as HSK or Hanyu Shuping Kaoshe, correct me if I'm wrong, and then YCT is Youth Learner Test, and then BCT, Business Chinese Language Test. So, in foreign language learning, for the foreign learners, especially for adults, they have a good knowledge of their mother tongue or their first language. So, in most cases, the influence of their first language or their mother tongue, it will very affect the understanding of the learning foreign language. So from how the word's meaning, how the word is defined or translated, it can cause the misunderstandings for the foreign language learners who are still in the beginner level specifically. So according to Litchview here, the meaning of a word can be divided into 7 categories. There are conceptual meaning, connotative meaning, social meaning, affective meaning, reflective meaning, collocative meaning, and thematic meaning. So from conceptual meaning, it refers to dictionary meaning. So for example, if we take the word walk in the dictionary, so the dictionary meaning is like let me show you. If we go to the Oxford English Dictionary, in here, if we take the word walk, so the conceptual meaning or the dictionary meaning is here to move and then go somewhere by putting one foot in front of the other on the ground and some kind of like that. So um, it is like related with the semantics. So there is nothing term like no subtext. It's just like straightforward, and it is like literal and yeah, dictionary definition of the word. So it's also what can we call as denotation or cognitive meaning. So for the connotative meaning here, it's connected to a certain word. For example, like the connotation for the word snack, it could include like from the evil or danger word. And then for the social meaning, it's based on the social context that they are used in. So for example, from the word daddy and father, these words share the same conceptual meaning, that is male parent, but the daddy word one here is like is an informal word, while the father it tends to be used in written form or maybe on the formal occasions. And then for the effective meaning, it refers to the speaker's feeling or attitude. So it's rather than just its dictionary meanings, but it's subjective. So for example, like a CEO and a nun, they are talking about charity, but it could mean they talk about the two different things. Okay, and then reflected meaning, it refers to terms which have more than one meaning at the same time. So there's a kind of like ambiguity. For example, the word pass away. So it is commonly understood as like a stop living rather than move to a distance at the conceptual meaning level. And then for the collocative meaning, it contains the words that are found together. For example, like take pretty and handsome, and these words are more often associated with one gender or the other. So if we hear someone behind us say that, don't you look handsome, and we look to see one person talking to a girl and one talking to a boy, so here our knowledge of how handsome is used collocatively, it helps us to figure out that the person we overheard is talking to the boy. And then about the thematic meaning, it is how the speaker portrays the message through the word choice. So the other of words used, so the meaning that the words in here, it conveys that the something is connected with the theme. So for example, if we learn English, so we use like active and passive voices. So it plays in a different like emphasis on the subject and the object. So through this, because a single word can have different meanings and implication, it is important for the foreign language learners to concentrate on how they acquire the meanings in the especially in the appropriate context. So in this study, it focuses on the problem of translating between the Chinese and English at the preliminary or intermediate level, especially. And then this research also focused on the class word or the function word content using the appropriate perspective of the relevant theories and also the linguistic approach, like uh, from the semantic, pragmatic, and also the grammatical. And then we go to the next is research question and aims of the study. So the research question, there are three. Well, the first is what are the pedagogical perspective of teaching practitioners regarding translation as a teaching method in Chinese vocabulary teaching? And then second, what kinds of translation problems are there within TCFL textbooks at the preliminary level and intermediate level? And then are there any differences between the translation problems at the preliminary level or intermediate level and in the content word class or function word class? And how can these findings be applied to improve the quality of vocabulary translation in TCFL textbooks? And then for the aim of this study is to explore the implication of this question, this research question. So the next is theoretical framework and methodology. So in here, the writer used functional equivalence theory and glosseme tripartite theory in this thesis. And Nida here proposed the theory of functional equivalence. It involves functional equivalence if in translation it is defined as the closest natural equivalence to the message of the source language. It also a combination of modern linguistics with translation studies to describe a certain equivalent relationship. So basically, this theory is widely applied in Chinese English translation activities. So it can be concluded that Nida here states that translation is related to the linguistic problems and also meaning and the equivalence as well. So from this, we know that translation is a process that intended to find the equivalent meaning in the target text. And then for the tripartite theory of glosseme is an internal classification of glosseme which refers to three types of glosseme, which are semantic meaning, pragmatic meaning, and grammatical meaning. Um, so in tripartite theory of glosseme, this glosseme here is like a linguistic term. So these three types of glossemes are produced from syntax, semantics, and also the pragmatics. So the type of semantic meaning here includes like the meaning value and also the meaning field that is used to provide the lexical meaning, and as well as the connotative meaning of words for the translation the translators when they are faced with the vocabulary translation work. And then from the pragmatic here, it mainly studies the meaning of words in different contexts. And then the type of grammatical meaning here is related to the syntactic function as well as the problems related to the part of speech. And in this study, the writer combined the tripartite glosseme theory and the functional equivalence theory of translation to examine the problems caused by the improper translation instances in the vocabulary list of the selected TCFL textbooks. The writer used a self-designed corpus to analyze the meaning of a word in its original context and compare it with a given translation to find items that are not equivalent. And then all data, including text, words, and translation, have been collected from 12 TCFL textbooks to compare the identified translation problems to find out if there are significant differences in the types of non-equivalent translation problems at the preliminary or intermediate level and the content or function word classes. So the writer conducted a comparative analysis. And then about next, it is like the research design. So the thesis selects 12 representative TCFL textbooks and text words with appropriate translations and additional explanations from the vocabulary list as objects of the research. Um, this was done because the writer can investigate whether there were significant differences in the non-equivalent translation problems at the preliminary or intermediate level and as well as the content or the function word classes. And then the Chinese teachers and students from Chinese university have taken part in the questionnaire, survey, and assessment test research. So from the next, it is recent research into vocabulary teaching using TCFL textbooks. So from the first, it is by Lu Jijian in 1987, discussed the bias problems of word definition as a consequence of collocation, application, effective meaning, or cultural information in the target language and in the native language. Lu's view aims to simplify the native language translation of classroom teaching materials and textbooks. And then the second is Li Quan from 2002 discussed the issue of whether to explain vocabulary in the native language or the target language and propose the principle of vocabulary translation in the native language and in the target language. And then Li Jixian in 1995 supported the view of Li and further pointed out that explaining the meaning of the word of in the native language can reduce the ambiguity of the meaning. So here is the next different methods for translation of vocabulary in TCFL. In Chinese vocabulary, it plays a key role in grammar and comprehensive courses. So, as I said earlier, uh, because the increasing of people in learning Chinese, especially in this context of mastering a foreign language in promoting the Chinese language internationally. So, this has brought the the opportunities and also the challenges from the diversity of the non-native Chinese learners, which we know it must come from different social and also the cultural backgrounds that regarding promoting the Chinese language itself. So, um, in addition, the importance of TCFL textbooks in Chinese, in Chinese teaching activities. TCFL textbooks are also here the main lexical resource for the non-native Chinese learners. So the quality of TCFL textbooks is related to the arrangement of vocabulary as well as the grammar. Because in vocabulary learning, this is a basic thing and it's like a task for the learner. So the important elements in textbook preparation and classroom teaching, it is including such as like word explanation. So um, in here, according to Chu and Chow, in 2012, translation methods in TCFL field consists of direct translation methods, morpheme methods, and then context methods, and then collocation methods, and then semantic association methods. So in here, from the direct translation method, it is commonly used in vocabulary lists when a Chinese word has a equivalent translation in the target language. The translation can be directly used. So, from the next morpheme methods, it is used to explain the compound words by their morphemes. So, in Chinese, a single morpheme it refers to a single Chinese character, and a compound word is a word that includes more than one such character. So the meaning of the compound word it can be explained according to each component. So for example, I I want to open the thesis. Okay, from the morpheme method. So for example, in here, in the compound word, it is fei chi, aircraft, the lexical meaning of fei, and then chi are fly and machine. So the meaning of fei chi can be explained as a machine that can fly. It's directly from the meanings of the individual components from the fei and chi. So uh, it, it, it includes more than one such characters. And then for the next, wait. For the next is context. Wait. For the next is context method. So it's an approach approach to teaching the vocabulary that focuses on the specific environment around the target word. For example, like phrases, sentences, or collocation. So in this case, the environment refers to the language environment within which the word is being taught. For example, like it is spoken in maybe in the Chinese, English, or Japanese, or other foreign languages. And then about the collocation methods, it is refers to the fixed usage of certain Chinese words, and it's also based on the Chinese grammar. For example, uh, okay, I open again. From the collocation method, for example, a collocation from pu here, and then an adjective, and then pu, and then an adjective refers to a moderate status such as pu leung purer, or neither too cold nor too hot, or pu ta pu xiao, or neither too big nor too small, and pu yuan pu chin, neither too far nor too near. So um, it refers to a moderate status like this, such as neither too cold or nor too hot. So let's go back. So from the semantic association, um, it is refers to the semantic association. Oh, wait, sorry, I open again. So from the semantic association, we can see that, for example, in here, when learners have learned the word sui xiao, or school, a series of relevant words, xiao yuan, or campus, and then shu she, or accommodation, and xiao she, teachers, and shui sheng, student. So it allows the learners in here to do this by providing a list uh, of all the relevant or the associated words for each word. And then we go back again. And then vocabulary is always considered as the foundation of grammar, syntax, and text-based learning from Sing in 2011. So basically, this research has taken vocabulary list from Chinese words with English translations, and it is selected from TCFL textbooks as the objects. And all the translation vocabularies have been examined through the theory of the equivalence of the translation from the categories of semantic and also pragmatic and also the grammatical meaning. So each vocabulary translation, uh, it was back translated to identify the items that didn't match the given translation. So the selected inconsistent pairs have been analyzed from the perspective of semantic meaning categories, pragmatic meaning categories, and also grammatical categories, which are these are the elements of this tripartite Gaussian theory. So in here, the writer can find out the types of translation problems that exist in the selected material. So next, it is selection criteria of TCFL textbooks of the study. So in this selection of TCFL textbooks, there are 4 criteria set out below according to research objectives. First is materials that are widely used in the field of TCFL teaching, and then is used for a comprehensive Chinese language course that provides true listening, speaking, writing, and reading training, and then provided for students from the initial level or preliminary level to the intermediate level, and then it's published after 2010. So in the modern textbooks, it can take different forms from the general categories, whereas the it is referred to published paper books. So textbooks, it can include all kinds of like video data, website data, or published materials that can be used for the personal classroom teaching, while the specific textbook here only refer to published paper book used for uh, the especially for the classroom teaching. And then go to the next. It is about words classification in Chinese and English. According to Li and Chiang in 28, the Chinese word is equivalent to a morpheme, which is defined as the smallest unit of meaning and the basic material for expressing ideas in everyday life. Um, so from here, there is a syllabic perspective. So it is like if a word is represented by a single syllable, so it's called like a monosyllabic word. And then if a word is represented by like two syllables, it is called as like this syllabic word. So for example, in here I will show you. So in here it is the table of the syllabification. So this is the Chinese one, and then this is the pinyin, and then this is the translation of individual morpheme, and then this is the full translation. So from the table here, a monosyllabic word, it represented by one Chinese character, which is chia here, and then the morpheme is house, and then the full translation house. And then for this syllabic word, it is represented by two Chinese characters in here, chia and ren. So the translation of individual morpheme from chia is house, ren is people, and then the full translation is family member. And then for the next is polysyllabic word. So it is like presented by three or more Chinese characters. So from this, chia house, and then u affair, and then huo job. So the full translation is housework. And then the next like chia, it is house, and then yong, it is use, tien is electric, and chi is equipment. So the full translation is household appliances. So we go back again. Yeah. So next, for the research method, the study analyzed vocabulary translation in the selected material to identify non-equal items and differences at the preliminary and intermediate levels using questionnaire survey methods, assessment tests, and a self-built corpus. It is based on a theoretical framework that includes the tripartite theory of closing and functional equivalence to explore the translation problems identified in the selected materials. So in here, the questionnaire surveyed research participants in the study were 160 Chinese teachers from China, and then in English, and then all participants are qualified Chinese teachers in the area of teaching Chinese as a foreign language. Each selected TCFL textbooks has a similar layout to identify translation problems in context. So in here, they are selected after attending the conferences or workshops and other academic activities. So the survey questionnaire is posted online and then sent by email or post. So it is also naturally anonymous survey questionnaires for the reliability questions. And then the participant information sheet, it is also, yeah, it also has participant information sheet and participant consent. It is because indicate that the participant can withdraw at any time without giving any reason, but the data obtained will be retained and used as part of the study. So for example in here, so this is the example of questionnaire survey. If you want to look at the looks, okay. And then for the approach to the corpus design for this research project includes two stages. The first is the preliminary and intermediate level data that were analyzed separately to explore potential differences. And then also the assessment test is based on a paper format containing 195 items, which are Chinese words. Appropriate translation is considered one item. And then the students were asked to read each Chinese word in the context provided and then use their professional knowledge. They are required to take the exam alone, and then the students are also informed one day in advance to bring a printed or electronic dictionary if needed. So from the data collection here, all questionnaire survey study participants were asked to complete or return the questionnaire survey materials within 2 weeks. And then after collecting 160 questionnaire surveys, the writer analyzed each question from the survey individually to build an overall perspective of the participants' views on vocabulary translation in current TCFL textbooks. And also, the writer uses the online survey software, SoJam, equipped with statistical functions and simple calculation for basic data analysis. And then about the all of the about the vocabulary here, the vocabulary list, all the vocabulary lists with their corresponding translation, and parts of the text have been entered through a series of corpus building processes such as cleaning, tokenization, and tagging of speech passages, and then entered into the corpus. The corpus research has helped identify non-equivalence translation problems in the TCFL textbooks that selected for contrastive assessment and analysis. And then for the assessment, the writer manually input the paper format assessment test data into the computer to calculate each option's total amount of preferences. And then Microsoft Office Excel 27 was used to generate the distribution of preference for each option. And then the writer categorized the assessment data into the preliminary level and intermediate level. And then there were subcategories of parts of speech for each level. So the analysis of each option's total preference was carried out according to different parts of speech. So this is the end of my chapters that I brought up until chapter 3. Then this study will continue in the fourth chapter, where the next chapter will discuss the analysis of the questionnaire surveys and also the analysis of assessment tests. And then after that, uh, it is followed by the chapters 5 and 6, which will provide the detailed investigation and also the problems itself.
Hello everyone.
So, far, you can continue for your.
Can you listen me, Francisca?
Yes, but it's too little.
How is it right now? Is it audible?
Yeah, it's like so, not clearly so much.
Okay. There is a problem. Then must tell me, as I could tell that I've just maximized my sound. May I share my screen? Is it visible to you all?
Yes, we can see the slide.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So, sir, and all of you, assalamu alaikum. And I am starting with the chapter 4. As we were discussing about the PhD thesis, the chapter number 4 is analysis of users' views on the translation of vocabulary and TCFL textbooks. So, before starting the chapter, just to tell you that how the chapter is divided in different types of sections and how it is outlined. So basically, the chapter, am I clear to you all? Hello, can you listen me? Hello, hello.
Yes, yes.
So I was telling about the outlines that the chapter is divided, the analysis of research view on the translation of vocabulary in TSFL textbooks, and the chapter is divided into the different outlines. First and foremost, the chapter's methodology and it discusses the different types of preceding research and its main discoveries of the previous studies. As the writer has researched different types of papers, or he has gone through the different types of papers. He has given the slight overview about the different previous studies in this chapter. And secondly, the detailed illustration of this studies research designed for the answering the research questions. Basically, the chapter 4 and 5 is designed to answer the question number S. Francisca already told you that there are the three types of three main questions. So the chapter number 4 and 5 is for the presented for the presentation for answering the those two main questions, research questions. Chapter 4 basically present the question answer of slight background and answer of for question number 1 and question number 2. And when we will move to the chapter 5, then we see that there is the answers and the background about the question number 2nd and 3rd. So overall, the project approaches to the data and processing preparation is also given. You can see that here the different types of settings are utilized in this chapter. The writer of the researcher has first and foremost applied the Kalpura setting, and then he designed the questionnaire survey, and then he presented the assessment test. So there are also figures that how did he there are also figures that how did he utilize. First and foremost, he used the series of TSL textbooks, and there is also the figure of counting those words, English and Chinese words. I think 6,599 Chinese words and 1,400, 14,803 English words in chapter 3 are presented. So questionnaire survey for analyzing the data, he has utilized, he has given this questionnaire survey to the 160 qualified Chinese teachers, and assessment he has went through the 150 Chinese students from the English departments at the English Chinese universities. And further, this chapter also justifies the originality and importance of overall research. While moving, I was thinking and observation. I was having observation that in both of these chapters, chapter number 4 and chapter number 5, I don't know whether what was the purpose, but the logic is that both of these chapters, chapter number 4 and 5, are the soul of overall paper. Maybe this is because that there the data analysis, or there are the figures, there is the analysis of overall. There are the answers of those research questions. So it also provides the kind of robust and clear description of the motivation for the study through the type of empirical evidence and collected from the questionnaire data and attempts to answer the first research questions. As I earlier mentioned that this chapter for present the answer of first question. The question is what are the pedagogical perspective of the teaching practitioners regarding the translation as teaching method in Chinese vocabulary teaching. So the questionnaire survey data provides the detailed as well as well-informed description of the current and non-equivalent translation problems and TCFL textbooks. And lastly, the findings of the questionnaire survey exercise confirms that the present research is urgently needed. There is the pressing need of this research. The writer tries to convey this message that the research he has conducted is need and there in his area there is needed. So furthermore, the assessment data in this sector shows that there are some series recurring translation issues in exciting TSFL textbooks, and these are compelling reasons for conducting this study. And on the other hand, this sector also aims to present an overview of non-equivalent translation items according to the evaluation criteria. While evaluating in the ending of chapter, the writer present different types of data and different types of examples by taking the such as different parts of speech, such as noun, pronouns, verbs, adverbs, and so on. So the first section, which is 4.2, begins by presenting the analysis of vocabulary translation textbooks and used in TSFL teaching field. And the second part is followed by the detailed illustration of the assessment test in question and section 4.3. And in this type in this section we are also identified the non-equivalent translation problems and which were extracted from the corpus and were subsequently given to the 150 third year 150 students who were in second semester of their undergraduate bachelor's degree, and those all students were from the English department. So their views on the non-equivalent translation items were taken into the consideration for the confirming the reliability of the identified non-equivalent translation problems. So overall, the problems are identified by finding the basic root causes. So in nutshell, the detailed description of these non-equivalent translation problems will be presented in chapter 5. And beginning with the subsection of this chapter and introduction, basically the chapter first and foremost chapter discusses the overview of vocabulary in vocabulary translation in TSFL textbooks. So there the writer wanted to convey different types of different types of problems by giving the different types of examples with the help of vocabulary text translation TSFL textbooks. And he also presents this overall result with the help of analysis of the questionnaire survey. So in order to improve the importance, he has done overall this for the ultimate purpose that to improve the comprehension of the learners of the Chinese, as the most current Chinese textbooks provide the translation along the original Chinese words. And secondly, and nowadays, and there are also various languages provided for the vocabulary translation, lexical intonations such as English, French, Korean, and Japanese language, and these all types of different lexical intonations and examples are also added. And translation issues, it is also found with the help of questionnaire survey that there are translation issues always exists between two completely different languages and cultures. When it comes to the matter of translation, we see that there are always matters. There are also always issues. There are some words that we can translate. We cannot. There are some words. There are some emotion and feeling that we can transfer. We cannot transfer and can never transfer to the target language. So it is that a number of translators are facing the problems. So the data the writer has gathered from the questionnaire survey and with the help of responses is given into the 4.2 section, and this is also given with the help of analysis, and as you all of know that he has included 100, as earlier told you that told you that he has included 160 teachers, and among those 160 teachers, 110 female participants were included in the questionnaire survey. So with every question, I will be defining you that what was its purpose to include our questions. Actually, uh, uh, basically, when I was moving with this paper, I noticed that he has written a detailed description of every question, that why he has included that question in his questionnaire survey. So if we will move in detailed description, we will consume more time. So slightly, I will give you just overview about those questions, that how the participants played their role, how the participants responded as questionnaire survey, and what type of questions he included. So the first question you can see is in front of you. He presented is the your gender. So there were also options given in the questionnaire survey. There are also options, and whether selecting the A or B. But it is important to note that in most of the questions, after when we will move to the this social background question, we see that he has analyzed the data with help of responses. I mean that he saw that most of the people, if selecting A, then they are giving the most priority to those to their data, or to their matter. So it doesn't matter whether selecting the A or B here, because this question is related with the background. So in first question, 50 were male, and second the 110 were female. So the second question was included as how long have you been a Chinese teacher? So because of he was conducting the survey, questionnaire survey from those experienced teachers, among all of those experienced teachers have different type of skills, and they have been teaching with different passages of time. So in most of the teachers were teaching for past 2 decades, and the proportion of those female teachers and male teachers is, were in that time when he was conducting the survey was higher than those of those males, because he has also noticed with the help of questionnaire survey by collecting the data that the figure of female teachers is more than those of the male teachers. This might be that the female teachers had more experience than those male teachers. The majority of the participants study that were included were the female teachers. So related with the second question, the Chinese teachers all have the professional educational background in both Chinese and English. They were the bilingual, and a clear majority of the participants, 61%, have already at the TCFL career for 11 years. As I earlier told you that they have different type of experiences, and different periods they've given in their teaching, whether some of them were related with the TSFL and some of them were related with the both bilingual and the English language too. So rest of the participants who were included have the less experience working as the Chinese teachers. They had experience ranging from 1 to 10 years. So the third question was included in the questionnaire: what types of class do you teach? So here the the question is asked because the writer wanted to check the listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills are considered as the 4 skills, as the writer Ziyu and Zhao has included it. These both these all of these 4 skills are stressed. So in the comprehensive courses, training in all these four language learning skills is provided to those all teachers. So for this present study, all of those Chinese teachers choose the last option. Means they went through the comprehensive courses. The courses were related with the listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. As none of them was already teaching a single type of class, so they some of them were teaching the speaking class, some of them were teaching the listening class, and some of them were teaching the writing class, or some of them were related with the speaking class. So in this way, the comprehensive course and most Chinese teachers were also teaching the writing speaking. As no, you can notice that the 56% participants were also teaching the reading courses. So the percentage is just given to show the data that how was the figure of those all teachers. Yeah, the teachers who teach individual listening courses constituted the smallest percentage in the present study. Yeah, and all of it was somehow a low figure in teachers who were teaching the listening type of courses to the students. The message is that all of those teachers were in different levels, and and the fourth question was that at what level do you teach? Here the level is asked. All of the participants are qualified. As earlier it is mentioned that they were qualified, and they had the and some of them had the preliminary level, and some of them had the advanced level. So some of them were in middle, that they were moving from the primary level to the advanced level. So the question was therefore designed to ascertain the language levels and that they currently teach. And the result of this question was that the result 54% of the participants teach primarily the level students, and around 29 teach intermediate level. And the advanced level is the most difficult and challenging learning stage. That's why the percentage maybe was low, or there might be another problem that they do not belong to the target, or the language that and they teach might not be their native language. So for this study, only preliminary and intermediate level TSFL textbooks have been chosen, and as advanced level material no longer provide the translation for the learners. Am I clear to you all? Hello.
Yes, we can
Oh,
hear you well.
thank you so much. Yeah, the question number 5 was included in TSFL text, was about the TSFL textbooks, and that which of the following TSFL textbooks do you use now and have you used in the past? So, uh, for it is it was very clear while presenting the data or conducting the questionnaire survey that four types of in the question, four types of books were given related with the TSFL textbook. And number one was the uh, number one was the Era Chinese, and the second textbook was followed by the Developing Chinese and an Easy Approach Chinese, and another book was the Discover China. Yeah, so all of these four different types of book TSFL books were included, and were given the participants opportunity to select whether they've used or not. So the percentage is in front of you. The first book is selected by the participant 70%, second is 60, 15, and less is for decreasing. So the question number 5 is was included in the questionnaire survey. And the sixth was, how do you manage your vocabulary teaching time in your class? So it is the matter of facts, and when we move to the system of education in China, we see that their official timing of the class, standard class, is 45 minutes. So a teacher who teaches the English or another language or Chinese, how does he divide his vocabulary timing? Does he teach or not, or what percentage of time does he give to his student? So the question was included in this manner, and the study has taken vocabulary as its main research focus. So because of this, that vocabulary is the basic background, and with the help of vocabulary, a number of students, usually it happens, even I saw in Pakistan that a number of students get encouragement and get a kind of confidence while speaking, while utilizing different types of words. So the question is included for this purpose, that how much percentage they are using. So all participants limit their vocabulary teaching timing to the 15 minutes and less or less. So 84 percentage of the participants dedicate less than 40 minutes to vocabulary teaching, and remaining 60% of participants spend extra 5 minutes on. So most of them were spending their 5 minutes, or more, some of them were spending just 10 minutes or 16 minutes. So this is what we see the observation. We see a kind of observation in message, that how in standard class a teacher can divide or assume 45 minutes for the vocabulary. So in a standard class, it means that the teachers are advised to fit their vocabulary teaching 15 to 20 minutes time frame. So in normally the suggested time is between the 15 to 20 minutes, but most of them were giving the 10 to 5 minutes. So this is what, and the kind of fault was found. And the seventh question was included in this questionnaire survey was: do you think that it is necessary to give the English translations and the vocabulary lists of the TCFL textbooks? So this was also related with the TCFL textbooks. So this question basically focused on clarifying the participants' standpoints towards the translation in TCFL field. What kind of things motivate them, and are they interested in this field or not, or whether what kind of backgrounds do they conduct. So with this it was included, but there are also two main viewpoints concerning the teaching of language in Chinese classes. Number one was the language types of the Chinese teaching was language 1 and language 2 method. So this the table was given in the thesis, and the explanation is given that how the method is used, in what manner the method is brought. So, moving to the question, that the question was asked that how often do you take the English translation vocabulary into the consideration when you prepare your classes? So this is also one of the most important questions, and it was observed that the majority of the Chinese teachers place a considerable degree of the importance on English translation during their preparation time. So the English was preferred even in instructions, even in preparation, in maybe in majority of the aspects. So enhancement of the Chinese language input during the classes will help the learners to accustom themselves to Chinese more effectively. And lastly, the importance of application of the translation TCFL field is another compelling reason for carrying out this study. The ultimate purpose is given in the last, that the importance of application translation and TCFL field is another compelling reason. So this is how the question may be asked to find out the root cause between both of these languages. So moving to the question number 9, and the question number 9 was related with the also English translation. Was asked that do you think that it is helpful to give the English translation to the learners of Chinese? So you can see that the percentage is given, and question 9 is very similar to the question 7. And this question seeks to establish the whether the provided translation are useful for the learners or not. So if they are teaching in Chinese, they are giving the different types of note to their students, whether they are helpful to the students or not, are they understanding or capturing the things clearly or not. So this question is asked in this thinking. And secondly, nearly 69% of the participants agree that the English translations are very helpful for the students, and just our 26 percentage agree that it is merely helpful for the learners. So as the option was given just as very helpful, slightly helpful. So according to their choice, they selected, and only 5 participants suggested that it is important to balance the influence of the first language and the foreign language. So most of the times for the target language leave the impacts on the first language. So in this regard, 5% just leave their imprints to the option D. And the question 10 was, do you think that the English translations in your teaching material are accurate? And the survey was conducted from the teachers. So all of these questions are looks that they had the huge type of experience, and these all questions comes in under the line of uh, professional experiences. So the whole questionnaire survey is already told you initially in the introduction that was in Chinese, but because of their native language, but English version were also provided to the readers. Among 160 participants in this part of the study, included, as already mentioned, and furthermore, just 39 of the participants agreed that there was some accuracy within the translation offered. So just 39%. So we can see that there's the majority, but there was also minority that 2.5% of the participants admitted that there is no idea about the potential translation problems in the textbook they use. So this is what this percentage shows, that many of them does not believe, and some of them, majority of them, they believe that translation, English translation teaching material is accurate. So question number 11 was included that, do you think that inaccurate? Yeah. The question number 11 was included that do you think that inaccurate English translations affect the comprehension of learners of Chinese during their vocabulary and learning process? So the figure of the percentage and the result of this question is in front of you, that the 90 participants who choose the option B, C for the question 11 and 10 and 11 provided the explanation and illustration for the non-equivalent translations. And the majority of the participants stated that inaccuracies, there are the mistakes, the exist to the greater the lesser extents within their TCFL textbooks. So the result of the questionnaire surveys showed that the translation problems are widely considered and to the exit by the teachers. So indeed, it is the better effects, and one cannot deny that translation matters are clearly visible when we see the research. So another part of chapter was analysis of the assessment test, and this part was part 3, and in the very first part, and the overview about the assessment test was given, and overview of about the assessment test was given, and the questionnaire survey data in this part shows that the non-equivalent translation problems have become an influential factor affecting the Chinese learning activities. A detailed analysis of identified translation problems in the corpus research has been carried out. So secondly, Empirical evidence of the assessment test shows that the participants all agree that some serious translation problems affect these commonly used TCFL textbooks, and this also confirms that there was reason for conducting this study was compelling. And it is also one of the most important points that I saw. I was actually I was basically shocked when I saw that 150 third year, uh, 150 students who were in third year with an excellent educational background, both Chinese and English, attended the assessment tests. So the material for the assessment tests were designed from the corpus data, and there were 119 five non-equivalent translations of the vocabulary items featured in the textbooks were selected from the corpus data, and the data was given to the participants in the assessment test to see whether they agree with the results or what are their views about the data. And 150 participants at this stage of the research were required to take the assessment individually within 100 minutes time frame. So they were also given a time, kind of limited time in order to attempt the assessment test. Moving further, analysis of the assessment data is in part second. We see that the present study has chosen is conducted with the help of Likert scale for designing the assessment test paper, and Likert scale is used. And secondly, the aim of assessment test was to confirm the identified translation items as non-equivalent, and they therefore validate the rational of the thesis. And lastly, the test paper or the test assessment was designed in a manner where the students were giving or the participants were given the option whether to agree or disagree with. And all of these is mentioned that all of the assessment papers were collected entirely within the 100 minutes time frame. So after the evaluation project 190, it was the result that 195 translation problems were identified and selected for the participant to assess. So 195 translation problems is a huge figure that were identified with the help of assessment test, which was conducted within the 100 minutes. So the most of them, there was also option that it was not just given that whether you have to disagree or agree with that. There was also option that partially agree have been placed together with the disagree. They might have their different views not related in opposed to the agree and disagree. So this was also optional option in the test assessment test. So you can see here that the figure of overview of non-equivalence translation problems, and the figure of those nouns, verbs, pronouns, adjectives, particles, preposition, conjunctions, and these both are measured in both types, preliminary level and intermediate level. So the 195 items at the preliminary and intermediate level are identified. The analysis has been structured with the part of the speech, original Chinese words. For example, here is the example that the verbs means in this category. In this category, all of the identified Chinese verbs have been listed. So here you can see that at the preliminary level, 35 verbs, 34 equivalence translation problems regarding the verb are identified, and in intermediate level 20. In this way, series goes, and noun, verb, pronoun. So total at the end, when we see the total that at preliminary level, we see that 119 equivalence translation problems are found. Whether on the other end, intermediate level 76. So moving to the detailed description, just giving you a slight view, because if we move in depth, so it will consume much more time. I'm trying my level best to give you just looks and to give you a kind of understanding about the data and material and how the methodology was used. So about the verbs, there were 34 verbs with preliminary level and 20 verbs at the intermediate level of the assessment. And this is same as the figure you can see here. Yes, you can see is at the top of the list. So this the detailed description was given in the paper. So because of this, I wanted to give you overview. That's with this regard to the preliminary level is shown in figure 4.3. As far as the verbs are concerned, 60% of the participants choose the option 8 to show that the given the translation was essentially acceptable, and nearly 69% of the clear majority preferred the option P was shows that the respondents only partially agreed. And the last year, a minority of the respondents categorized the remaining verb translation as option C. So this is the result of the total figure was 34, and at the primary level, at secondary level 20. About the nouns, there were 90 nouns and the preliminary level 11 and the 16 nouns. Mistakes of equal translation was assessed at the intermediate level. So there is also a detailed description that the results of both primary and secondary are given. And if we look at the yes, primary level, we can see that the 60 the respondents selected the option B. 60% were in figure, and followed by 26, and respondent favored option A, and 6% choosing the C. So this is just a detailed description that how the respondents selected and what was their result and how did it came. And at intermediate level, 80% population were indicated, and at option 20, there were the more than 18 who indicated the option C, and 57 percentage were B, and then 25 percentage were with the list of the A. About the adverbs, there were also 10 adverbs at the primary level, and then on the other hand, 9 adverbs at the intermediate level of the assessment were assessed and identified. And about this percentage is also given. So here I saw that according to the analysis, one of the most important points was mentioned that according to according to the analysis. Hello.
Hello, yes. Sorry to interrupt. Uh, it's okay. According to SARSAT, it's gonna be only like more than 10 minutes left to finish mine also. So can you please a little bit more speed up? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for telling me. It's okay. Yeah. So just giving you the detailed description about this. As adjectives were included at the for intermediate level, and moving to the major verbs, and this are also included 29 numbers. Just not taken because of lack of time, and further pronouns were also in figure 2 and 4 and at primary level were the 2, and the secondary level was the 4 pronoun. The numerals were 3 in primary level, in secondary and secondary term intermediate level 2. Articles at primary level were the 5, and secondary level were the 3. So this preposition at the primary level was the 6, and at the secondary level was 1. You can see here. I'm not telling you the percentage because that we make up time. Conjunction were also in 2, and then 3 conjunctions were in intermediate level. Interjections were also in the 1. And the idioms in this regard were also in certain patterns, were 4 idioms and then sentence in 2. So about this summary of the chapter, I will just read the main important bullet point that the analysis has confirmed that the translation problems evidently exist, and it was found that the selected it was found in the selected vocabulary is noun, pronouns, verbs, adjective, and adverbs. So beginning with the chapter 5, and chapter 5 is about the analysis of identified translation problems from the selected TSFL textbooks. So about this chapter, uh, am I clear to you all? Hello? Yeah. Can you listen? Yeah, so chapter 5 was about the analysis of the identified translation problems from the selected TSFL textbook. To the introduction, this study basically aims to explore the translation problem originating from vocabulary presentation in the preliminary and intermediate levels. As this question, chapter 5, is basically arranged to answer the question number 2, and it also gives the slight background of the question number 3, research question 3. So the purpose of this chapter is to answer, yes, and this is written over here that question number 2 and 3. It also gives the slight background question 3. The question number 2 was that what kind of translation problems are there within the TSFL textbooks and the primary and intermediate level. So this chapter actually following the chapter and also aims to address the remaining research questions, as I already told you, and all of those research questions and question number 3 are given in some of the other research questions into question number 3. So in this chapter, the translation items chosen from the corpus of the selected materials have been categorized into the concerned word and the functional word of the class. The translation problems have been summarized into the 3 main basic types. And number 1 was the translation problems in terms of the semantic meaning, translation problem in terms of the pragmatic meaning, translation problem in context of the grammatical meaning, or in other words, the omission of parts of the speech and the problems within the parts of the speech. So all of these problems are summarized in 3 categories. And about the second part of this chapter, was that the translation principles and the current translation strategy used in TSFL textbooks. So, in about the translation principles and the current translation strategies that were used in TSFL textbooks, the discipline of terminology in translation, vocabulary translation also requires high standard of accuracy. So, the points one basically matters a lot, and secondly, it is a common belief that the selection of meaning should be in strict accordance with the word context. Lastly, vocabulary teaching cannot be separated from semantic, grammatical, pragmatic, phonetic, or the cultural teaching. This is how this summarizes the point number 2 of chapter number 5. So regarding the principles of vocabulary in TSFL textbooks, these were also divided in different categories. The vocabulary translation TSFL textbook manual aims at offering the assistance for the learners of the Chinese language, and it was also the principles were also divided into the 3 main sections. As this is written, there are 3 main principles of the vocabulary translation in the current TSFL textbooks, and all of these are giving the principle of the consciousness and accuracy. This is the first principle, and the description is in front of you. This principle says that the principle of constant and accuracy is a general principle in translation studies, and basically here is basic point. It requires one-to-one relationship between the vocabulary translation and original Chinese words in most cases. So the ultimate purpose is here, and second principle of the conscious and accuracy. So principle is the principle of the context orientation. The principle of the context orientation really relevant to the Chinese polysemy. Most Chinese words are compound words with polysemous characteristics. So because of this principle is added. And principle third was the principle of the guidance, and this principle is general principle like the first principle, but it aims to use the vocabulary translation to guide the learners to use the Chinese words in a proper and in an authentic manner. This is mentioned and Zhu and Bing and Han scholars. So And the last point is that the last in such information regarding the application of vocabulary mainly concerns collection and grammatical related with the parts of the speech and examples. And section 2 are the current translation strategies used in TCFL textbooks. As we were concerned about the principles and strategies, here strategies comes in this type in this section. There are different translation strategies used in vocabulary translation, and as using the synonyms, antonyms, transliteration, and grammar explanation, maybe other different types, but the major are given, which are mentioned by the different scholars. And opposed styles are commonly used in current TCFL textbooks and have been found in this project and also in project data analysis. And yes, as already Francisca mentioned it, the different types of translation are mentioned in the chapter, were mentioned in the chapter 1, and also there is also background about those, and huge examples are given. Different types of examples are given. Because of lack of time, I could not include those all examples, but to give you uh, just a background about those types of translation. The word for word translation was also known as a literal translation, and when referred to the following original language structures and target language. And the example is given. Just I have included just one example. And use, rate, and when we translate this word in the bookshelf, huge you are. And this is what I'm so sorry because I don't know about Chinese language. So this the paper and the sheet this is our overall about the Chinese translation. So and second translation that was used, free translation. The free translation is describes much more flexible than the literal translation. It's normally but completely ignore the original language structures. It does not matter whether how is the structure. Maybe in free translation we can just clear our concept. We does the vocabulary or grammar, anything else. The rules of language does not matter. So in this free translation, the example is given in front of you. Tai, and is translated in the G as Techi. So this is what the scholars give the example of free translation. This is Yes, another type was given the mixed translation strategies, and mixed translation strategies are mainly related with the grammatical translation, and they are commonly used to give the explanation for the usage function fixed collocation. So example of the fixed translation is also given. Ma is translated as indicated that something is obedient, and the translation is explained ma at functional level. So this is what and the different type of strategies, mixed translation strategies. And another section was about the translation problems at the primary level and intermediate levels of the selected TCFL textbooks. A number of translation problems occurs, and with the help of questionnaire, we saw that translation problems occurs, but at the level of at both intermediate and primary level, the research is taken the 12 books as it is specific research objects, and the 6 books have been used as exemplified the primary level, and the 6 book to represent the intermediate level. Based on the process of the corpus data analysis, 6,599 Chinese words as earlier mentioned, and 40,803 English words have been proposed and analyzed within their specific content through the dictionaries of the corpus. So 195 words have been identified from both primary and secondary level, intermediate levels. And you can see here and the tables that give the detailed description about both of these translation types of translation problems. And the translation problems which comes in the subtypes, primary types and intermediate types, value of meaning, field of meaning, contextual meaning, functional meaning. The percentage is different. And if we look at the second figure, we see that translation problems within the semantic meaning category also occurs, and the lexical meaning, connotative meaning, the level of translation problem, the primary and the intermediate level, preliminary and intermediate level. Among this is just the description about these both tables. Moving to the another part, translation equivalence problems at semantic level. So there were also the description about the translation equivalent problem semantic level, and in line with the format of the design translation quality evaluation framework, the tripartite theory of the classroom and functional equivalence theoretical frameworks divides basically the two main components in this section. The first section was the criteria as the value of the meaning, and the second is the category in the field of the meaning. So
Time is
let's
up. Stop presenting your screen and stop the presentation.
shall I start? Hello, sir.
Turn off your mic. Still hear a lot of background noise. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you very much. I finally got my mic fixed. So I will type. I will no longer type. I will just comment in speech. Okay, so again, the same mistakes. So what you're doing is just reading the thesis. So this is not going to give you any additional credit if you just do that, because I won't be able to understand whether or not you understand, you do understand the content of the thesis. Okay, even though you have transformed the text in the thesis into a presentation. So, yeah, Nan asked whether I can accept her recording. So unfortunately, yes, I can accept, but the one being graded is only the presentation that is presented within the class interval. I have mentioned last week that you should work as a team. Okay, so this kind of problem is really easy to solve. If you should have discussed like how much time a person will be allocated. And if you see, hang on. Yeah. Yeah. The presentation, if you see on about this class, it's 50 to 60 minutes presentation per group. So one person should be allocated like 20 minutes. So you should talk about this to your colleague, to your team member. And I think it's not fair for Nan who could not present today because some people took her time. Okay, so you should have coordinated as a team before you present, instead of just, okay, you do this part, you do this part, and I do this part, and let's present. Yeah, so that's not a good strategy for a presentation. And this is the same like in a conference. So if you are over the time, perhaps the room will be used by another presenter, and that's not fair for them. Okay, and if you have more than one person presenting as a team, then each person should be allocated a good amount of time. So one person should not be dominating unless you agree that, okay, so we do this as a team, but only one person is presenting. But that's not what I expect from this class. So I expect you to present as a team. So what I was thinking for you to have done is that you read the thesis and work as a team, you discuss and think about how to present best, because the structure of the thesis might not be the best structure for the presentation. Yeah. Yeah, now let me start by commenting on the thesis first. So I think the thesis is nicely written in terms of its format, because if you can see, it has like 3 research questions. That is really clear. Answer to research question number 1 is in chapter 4. Answers in research question number 2 is in chapter 5, and answers for research question number 3 is in chapter 6. So what you could have done if you read from the other way around, you read chapter 4, 5, and 6 first. You take the relevant bits, yeah, and correspond that to the other chapters, because chapter 2, 3, and 4, chapter 3 is about methodology. Yes, it is important, but you can integrate that in the background. In the background when you're presenting. I think the first presenter should have done that, and no need to repeat that. And then the second and third are literature reviews, but most of them are repeated again in chapter 4, 5, and 6. So for sure, the one that you really have to present, one chapter that is genuine, I have to say, quote unquote, genuinely different, is only chapter 3. Other chapters contain repetition here and there in different parts. So it would be good to understand the thesis first and think what's best. So I think what's best is that you start by presenting the background. So here, the background is teaching Chinese as a foreign language. That's why we see a lot of these acronyms, TCFL, yeah, a lot here and there in the thesis. And the person pinpoint on the use, highlighted the use of translation in TCFL books. So for instance, when we are reading English books, for example, reading books, let's say interchange, sometimes we find parts in which challenging vocabularies are presented and that their definitions are presented. This is almost the same, but in this case, the definition is provided in different languages. Okay, so the book is written in one language, but the description of the vocabularies is written in different language, and it's Chinese. So that's the background. Okay, and then you need to explain the procedure, the research questions. There are 3 research questions. Number 1, yeah, is actually what people think about books that contains translation. What do they think of the translation? Is it really helpful or not? Yeah, and the answer is yes. Yeah, according to a survey, according to the questionnaires, the author of the thesis distributed, yes, it's helpful to have the translation. Yeah. So in this part, you can highlight what's the questionnaire like. I said highlight, so not presenting all the questionnaires, not presenting all the content of the thesis. Okay. So it's easy to present this thesis by the research questions. They are already in order. Yeah. And the answer is yes. Yes, it is beneficial to have translations available in TCFL book. Now that they agree that, okay, having translations are beneficial for us. Now let's go to the second research questions. What kind of translation problems within TCFL textbook? Yeah, you need to identify problems in the textbook. And this has been answered in chapter 5. So there are 2 main problems. The first one is content word and translation of content word, and the second one is on the semantic. And this is where you can discuss at length. Sorry. about the examples. And you can refer back to the literature review. Yeah, because the 3 types of problems are semantic, pragmatics, and grammatical. Yeah, they have been described in chapter 2, but in chapter 5, yes, in chapter 5, they have been described at length with examples. So it will be better to check these examples and explain the foundations. No need to repeat or no need to present all the content of chapter 2. Yeah, the highlight is on the content words, so you can just focus on that and don't discuss about function words too much. And actually, this is quite predictable because in many languages, I think in all languages, the number of content words outweigh the number of function words. Function words are words like preposition, conjunction. So if you think about conjunctions, if you list conjunctions in the language that you're speaking, or maybe just English, okay, and you compare with nouns, okay, compare with nouns, like who do you think will outweigh another? Yeah, the answer is, of course, noun will outweigh the frequency of noun will outweigh the frequency of function words. Yeah, and due to this variation, of course, it is more difficult to translate, and the translation of function word is how do I say? For some reasons, they are quite quote unquote easy because there's not so many ambiguity. Okay, so when you think about noun, for example, let's not take example from noun. Verb, for instance, verb. The verb launch, to launch something. Yeah, it can be a verb or it can be a noun. The word take, for example, it can be a verb, it can also be a noun. Okay, so it's quite challenging to translate content word, of course, yeah, because they're vast number, and also they're polysemous, they're ambiguities. Yeah. So that's the reason why translating content word, if you read the thesis, is difficult. Actually, in chapter 2, where he gives some examples, I disagree with some of his examples, and I think some examples that the person classified as problems on semantic level, I think they are also problem in pragmatic. So in some cases, there is no clear-cut distinction between semantic and pragmatic. So one of the examples I wanted to highlight is on the translation of Sifue or Tai Tai. So these are two different words in Chinese which can mean wife. Yeah, in page, if I can remember it correctly, in page 48. Yeah. So even though both of them can be translated as wife, yeah, the meaning, not the meaning, but the pragmatic is different because wife is more frequently used in spoken communication, or Tai Tai is more frequently used in formal and polite situation. So this is like in English when you use mom and madam. So mom is like you can use it in non-formal situation, yeah, within family member, yeah, or maybe in class, yeah. But madam sounds like more formal, yeah. Maybe not the best example, but that's one example one analogy that I can think of. Yeah, and the difficulties on the grammar is due to the different type of the typology of the language, and this is also the reasons, one of the reasons for the inaccuracy in the translation, and this is one of the answers of research question number, let me see, 3. Are there any differences between the translation problems? Yeah. So he highlighted 2 levels, preliminary and intermediate. So which ones, whose translations are more problematic? And the answer is on the preliminary. Yeah. And I think this is quite dangerous because you give foundation on preliminary. And if you retain the error up to intermediate and maybe later advanced, the errors can be fossilized and hard to change. Okay. Okay, and also in chapter 6, even though it's not clearly explicitly mentioned in the research question number 3, he or she tries to unveil the reasons, possible reasons, and he said possible reasons for the inaccuracy in the translation. Yeah, and there are 3 possible reasons. The first one is the non-correspondence. So this is what I was mentioning to you about the different type of language typology. So Chinese, the typology of Chinese language is isolating, while the typology of English is inflectional. Does anybody know the difference between isolating and inflectional? I think in morphosyntax it has been discussed by Agus. Well, maybe he has described this to you, but let me remind you that isolating means like one word, one meaning. Okay, so one word, one morpheme. So in English, we can have a combination of different morphemes in one word. For example, boxes. So boxes, box is a noun, and es is a plural marker morpheme. Okay, so in Chinese, they have to be expressed as two separate words because they are two distinct morphemes. So this is the tendency. It does not mean that all words, all letters in Chinese, or words in Chinese have only one morpheme. Okay, but this is the tendency for isolating language. So that's why in Chinese it is quite difficult to find space because, yeah, it's no use. It's not pretty useful for them because they know each character is a separate morpheme, while languages like English, they need that. Languages like that are highly agglutinating, and maybe they need that, yeah. But for instance, like in Turkish or in Arabic, the speakers, even though these morphemes are agglutinative, but they know how to separate them. So in terms of what appears on the text, yeah, as a non-Arabic speakers or non-Turkish speakers, perhaps it's quite difficult for me to separate one word from the other as they're all agglutinating together. But for speakers of Arabic or Turkish, it's easy for them to say, okay, so this is the boundary of one word and another word. Yeah, so that's what's called non-correspondence. And this is one of the reasons, possible reasons, why inaccuracies in the translation takes place. And the second reason, second one, still in non-correspondence, is the grammatical flexibility for Chinese word. So, yeah, this is also some sort of ambiguity. Yeah, but in English, let's say a preposition of is not ambiguous, but there is one example. Yeah, there is one example where a word can be a preposition, yeah, in one context, and in different contexts can be a verb. Okay, so we don't find many cases like this, I think, in English. Yeah. But yeah, it happens in Chinese and maybe in some other languages as well. That's from what I read, from what I have read in the thesis. The second one is the cultural difference between English and he or she specifically mentioned here UK. Yeah, I think the reason why he or she mentioned UK is because it would be easier to compare Chinese and UK instead of comparing Chinese and multiple nations or whose first language or whose national language is English. So just one example. Yeah. The translation, the example that he gave is a translation of a word in Chinese, which reflects, which has the atmosphere of rural areas. Okay, so imagine imagine a sow, or how do I say, agricultural equipment that is very, very conventional. Yeah, very conventional and unique to one area. Yeah, and if you have to translate to English, you translate as a sow. Yeah, so when you translate to sow, yeah, the strategy here used is translating to using a more generic term or a more generic word is still acceptable, but you lost the information that that tool is unique, yeah, to that area only. So you lost that information. And this is one of the examples used in the thesis to highlight cultural differences between Chinese and UK. And that can probably cause the lost in translation, inaccuracies in translation. The last one, reasons, for possible reasons for the inaccuracy is on subjective reason. And I do personally think that the author does not explain this very well on the example that he mentioned, I think overlaps with culture. So the example that he or she gave is on the translation of peoccsing. Forgive my pronunciation, but this word can be translated into sir in one context or madam in different context. Yeah, but the level of honorification is different. So the level of honorification in Chinese is higher than that of in English. I don't know why he put that into subjunctive, but I think this is also a cultural problem. So yeah, but anyway, you are discussing the thesis. What you have to do is explaining what the author wrote, and yeah, of course you can have your opinion later, but first you need to explain what he or she wrote. Another example of this, let me think. Oh yeah, maybe this one will be helpful. So in Korean, to say, for example, my husband or my wife, they use a pronoun which can literally mean our, like our husband, like our wife. Yeah, even though he or she refers to her only husband or her only wife. Yeah, but that only applies when you are talking to a fellow Korean speakers. So when you are talking to non-Korean speakers, you tend to drop that pronoun and change to a more literal meaning pronoun. Yeah. So if you speak Korean and the person to whom you're speaking to said our husband or our wife, well, that does not mean that he or she is willing to share his or her husband with you. Yeah. So yeah, I believe that for this thesis, the best way to present them is to go by research question. Yeah, and as I said, you have to discover this on your own. Yeah, as you are now a master student, so you should be able to do this. And if you're struggling, then don't worry. This is a part of your MA journey. Just can make stronger later and not repeating the same mistake. Right. So I've explained this in 20 minutes. Yeah, so we are 10 minutes over time now. Any question? No question asked, I think. Yeah, or is my speaker broken now? I don't think so. Yeah. So in case you ask me a question, I don't hear it, feel free to write in the chat box. Okay, no question asked. I have scanned the barcode for all of you, so you don't need to scan the barcode by yourself. We will start. We should start another class in 7 minutes, but let's start like 10 minutes later. Yeah. Okay, so 15, 10, like 3:10. Yeah, 10 minutes after 3. So that give us like 17 minutes break from now. I hope this is okay with you. Yeah, you can leave this meeting and I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.